All right. What is up, guys? I don't know how much space I have left on the phone, so we're just gonna run with it. I'm pretty sure we're good because I think I deleted an hour-long video. I did. I deleted the French toast video the other day, so I should have done. It just occurred to me I still have a bunch of these K cups that I haven't been using. I was about to say I'm pretty low on coffee, but I forgot about all these guys. I can pull them apart and pour them into a regular coffee filter and make more coffee whenever I need to. But today, yeah, I think we're going with the hazelnut. I do need to go grocery shopping soon, but I don't think I might go today. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It all depends on how the timing plays out. Um, let's go ahead and oh, it smells so good. We're almost out of this. Let's see. I hope I have enough. If not, we can put like a single scoop, uh, something else in there, right? All right. So we got. You know what? Let's just make it easy. I don't have to force my hand inside. We're gonna dump it out in the tin, and then we'll mix it up in the tin. I don't know what's in there right now. We're gonna have mystery flavor coffee. That's kind of funny because that kind of mixes a word up that I want to talk about a little bit today, except for it's caffery. Well, we're gonna have mystery flavor coffee today. Uh, so while I'm well, let's get the count first. Just mix this up real quick. We got one, two, three, four, five. So much easier than when it's in the bag, you know? All right, let's go ahead and put that up there and get that cranking. So, what is it? 3 videos ago or 2 videos ago, depending on how you count, whether you count this video or not, I made a whole video about how I hate Christmas. I can't stop snacking on these pistachios. Uh, so I'm just gonna grab a couple of these real quick. Specifically, I didn't mean Christmas itself, but the way it's been monetized and the original idea of Christmas has been corrupted. And I'm pretty sure that's clear for anyone who watched the video. If not, well, go back and watch it again. But today, I want to do the opposite and talk about what Christmas actually means and what it's supposed to mean. It's unstuck in the show. Get out of there. All right, we're going to do 3 for the Holy Trinity. I didn't plan this, I just happened to grab 3. You gotta throw the shells away. Okay, so what does Christmas mean? Now, there's a common misconception that it's Jesus's birthday. It would be more accurate to say it was it's the celebration of the birth of Jesus, right? Because as far as we know, Jesus wasn't born anywhere near December. Um, how do we know this? Well, there's one really, really big hint, and that's the fact that Mary and Joseph were traveling to Bethlehem specifically for the census that was being taken by the Romans. And we can historically look back because the Romans were very strict about their record keeping, which is why this whole census happened in the first place. And of course, things have been lost over the centuries, right? But we have a pretty good idea of when the census happened. And I think it's like spring or summer around when Jesus was actually born. Don't quote me on the specific time. But what we do know for a fact is that he wasn't born during December, right? So the question then is, why do we celebrate Jesus' birth during December? I think there's three primary reasons. One is the official reason. Two is the pretty much like commonly accepted unofficial reason. And the third is my own personal reason, right? So the first one is, and the official reason is really, at least my understanding of the official reason. The Roman Catholic Church, whoever decided to hold Christmas now, they might have a different official reason. So ask them, go straight to the source if you want to know that. But it's my understanding that the primary reason that we celebrate Jesus' birth during December is because that section of the liturgical year was functionally relatively empty, right? Throughout the rest of the year, there's Easter and all kinds of things, and they basically just needed a spot to put it. So they were like, yeah, it goes really well right here. Now that's kind of my understanding of the official reason. The unofficial but generally accepted reason is that why they specifically chose to do it then was because they wanted to compete with the pagans, right? Historically, one of the biggest celebrations of the year has been the celebration of the winter solstice. And, no, I'm not saying no one, but for the vast majority of people, even in secular areas right now, most people, even if they aren't Christians, celebrate Christmas instead of the winter solstice these days. So it seems that that was successful if that was the plan of the Christians to kind of usurp the winter solstice. They have succeeded. Now, let me go ahead and pour this coffee because it's ready. And we'll delve into that a little more and then go to my reason for why I think we celebrate Jesus' birth during December, and for why I believe we should continue to do so, even though it's not actually when he was born, and it kind of seems like it was maybe a shitty thing for the Catholics to do, to shit on the solstice. We're gonna just throw some regular cream in it, I think. I don't know if I want any sugar with my hazelnut today. Let's see. No, that's perfect. All right. So, why? There was something else I want to say. Oh, yeah. I feel like Jesus wouldn't really have approved of the reasons why, if the second reason is true, the Christians decided to celebrate Christmas then. Because, and if you're not aware, it's literally the Mass of Christ, right? Christmas. Two words combined into one. It's the mass celebrating Christ's birth. I think, keep in mind that Jesus always knows our hearts, right? So, regardless of what reason the cardinals and other church leaders, I don't know if cardinals existed back then when they started celebrating Christmas. Someone who's a religious historian, let me know in the comments, right? And let me know if I'm wrong or if you disagree with anything I say in this video, of course. But I think Jesus would be kind of annoyed with them if that's why they chose to celebrate his birthday there, right? Because one of the things he did a lot was break bread with the pagans, right? Because historically, within Jewish culture, at least at the time, I don't know if that really translates today. It's the lore is that the Jews are God's chosen people, right? And in some ways, many of them had like a holier than thou mentality, where it's like if you weren't Jewish, you were an inferior culture, to quote Asmongold. It's not exactly what he said, but he got in trouble for saying the Palestinians had an inferior culture. So, but that is actually the mentality that many Jews had, at least in Jesus's era. So they got really annoyed that he would break bread and treated the pagans and the Gentiles, or whatever non-Jewish word you want to call them, any of the secular beliefs or other religious beliefs which may have not specifically followed the Abrahamic traditions, they got really annoyed about how kind he was to them, really. How he gave them pretty much all the same respect that he gave any Jew, right? So that's all in all what Christmas is really about, is kindness. And I think that's the real reason we still celebrate Christmas during this time of year, and why I will continue to celebrate Christmas, even though I think it's not necessarily, let's just say they didn't originally choose to make it during this time period out of kindness, at least as far as I can tell. But for me, right, I started off the month talking about how I had some pretty significant seasonal depression to deal with, and I'm still cleaning up from it. Like, I've got plates and stuff that I'm going to be washing after today. Like, the sink is kind of full, the countertop's a mess, but that's part of the plan for today, is to just keep cleaning up the house a little bit to make sure it's in good shape for when family shows up for Christmas. I think they're supposed to be up here Christmas Day. And I think the real reason we celebrate Christmas, even for people who are totally non-secular, or many people who are even anti-Christian, still celebrate Christmas or some variation of it. At least spread holiday cheer, for lack of a better term. I think it's primarily because all the everything that goes into this year, right? Not just the fact that it's like cold and miserable and you look outside and everything is dead, right? Uh, it's it's a way to bring joy and happiness back into life during what is arguably the most difficult part of the year. This is kind of a tangent, but also kind of relevant. Um, there's a study out there that shows that if you really want to kill the United States, you don't even need to nuke it. All you need to do is nuke the atmosphere above it. Because most people don't know this, but if you set off a nuke in the very high altitudes of the atmosphere, it creates an EMP wave that will have a massive area of effect and destroy most non-hardened electronics, right? So that means your cell phone, most of the lights in your house, basically anything that's turned on when that nuke goes off in the upper atmosphere, assuming it's sufficiently powerful and the EMP wave, because that's what it does, it creates an electromagnetic pulse wave. The EMP wave covers your area, you're within that area of effect. If it is attached to a power source, it's going to blow up. It's going to fry itself. And even some lesser electronics, just the amount of energy coming from that EMP might fry them, even if they're not attached to a power source or have power flowing through them, right? So it's not your cell phones or your lights that are the problem, but it is the infrastructure of our utilities, uh, the gas control systems, the water control systems, all that will get shut down instantly. And most people don't have 8 cases of water sitting in their dining room in case something like that happens, right? So, in a disaster scenario like that, when all the vast majority of our utility infrastructure gets knocked out, it's estimated that 80 to 90% of Americans would be dead by the end of the first winter. Well, why is that? It's specifically because winter is the most difficult time to survive. And that's really how this ties back into the video. In addition to the modern world creating all kinds of unnecessary financial burdens and stress during the winter period, it's also historically always been the most difficult time for humans in most climates to survive. So I feel like that's just an extra reason why we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ during this period of time. It is a celebration of the life of the fountain of life in the middle of the season of death. Now, why do I want to talk about Chris Caffrey-nation? That didn't come out the way I wanted it to. It sounded more like nation state. It was supposed to be more like caffeination. But if you don't know who that is, he's the frontman, essentially, of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. He does the emceeing during the show, and he's one of the founding members, I believe, or if not one of the founding members, he's one of the most senior remaining members. Um, I'm 90% sure he's one of the founding members, but don't necessarily quote me on that. Do your own research, right? Regardless, I think Trans Siberian Orchestra is one of the most wonderful things to exist in the entire world, right? Uh, Specifically, what they've done for my life is bridge the gap between my parents and I, right? Because I've always listened to much heavier music than they did, especially when I was like in high school, listening to a Linkin Park and Seether and 3 Days Grace, which, if you actually break down the lyrics, um, most of them have like relatively, maybe not Seether, okay, but 3 Days Grace and Linkin Park, most of them have relatively uplifting approaches, and that's not to say there aren't negative songs, right? Animal by 3 Days Grace is about fighting the darkness within yourself, right? But it's about fighting that darkness. Linkin Park, breaking the habit. It's not about becoming the habit. It's about breaking the habit. So it's like, yeah, even though they have some songs where they were in their feels, if you look at uh, the vast majority of the songs that they wrote and the way that they approached life, it's the negative songs weren't about being negative. It was about confronting those negative emotions and doing your best to overcome them, right? So even though both of these bands have generally positive messages, um, they were definitely like bands my parents weren't fond of growing up, right? 3 Days Grace doesn't really swear much. I think there's one F bomb on 1X, or maybe two. But well, Linkin Park does plenty. Not a lot compared to some bands, but especially when you take the really aggressive sounding music, the metal screams that Linkin Park is a fan of, or the uh, the grungy and kind of disrespectful belting vocals of Adam Gontier from 3 Days Grace, and the hip hop aspects of Linkin Park, which is especially in the 90s and early 2000s was you know hip hop culture was kind of seen as degenerate culture by some of the more old school traditional people. My father was raised Roman Catholic. My mother was raised um, Southern Baptist. So clearly they're both pretty traditional, right? They never really vibed with my music. In fact, I had a Black Sabbath album once that during the middle of a vacation, my dad looked up the lyrics and confiscated it from me and made me return it to the store after the vacation was over. So, needless to say, my musical tastes have always been a point of contention between my parents and I. Well, Trans Siberian Orchestra is the antithesis of that because I originally got into them. I first discovered them because of that viral video of the house with the lights on it. If you're my age, you probably know what you're talking about. But I'm trying to. It's Wizards of Winter, I think, is the song specifically. Dun 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 dun. There was a video that went viral on the internet years ago where it features Trans Siberian Orchestra, Wizards of Winter, and there's someone, I don't know whether this was like an advertisement for someone or if someone just went hard with holiday spirit. They took all the lights of their house and they synchronized them to this Trans Siberian Orchestra song. I'm pretty sure it was Wizards of Winter. And that shit went super viral and it was amazing. And I was like, okay, but this is actually a jam. This is like one of the first Christmas songs I've heard that I don't hate because I really didn't like a lot of Christmas music when I was younger, and I still don't like a lot of Christmas music. I've learned to, um, I guess, be less edgy a little bit and appreciate some of it a little bit more. But there's some of it that I still that "Baby It's Cold Outside" song is always gonna creep me the fuck out because it just sounds super rapey to me. I don't like any of it at all. And then there's lots of other things that it's just like a lot of it's not even good music. I feel was uh my biggest gripe, where it's just it feels like cheesy and it's almost like low effort bullshit got a pass simply because of the holiday season, you know? And I don't really vibe with that. I just want stuff to be good quality regardless. And I think easily Trans Siberian Orchestra are some of the best musicians and best performers in the world. And my parents love them too, which is great. We've been going to the show for God knows how long. I didn't go last year, truth be told, because like I wasn't exactly on the best of terms with my parents last year, and I felt like they weren't respecting my time at all, and I just couldn't afford to go. And they were making it, even though they were like paying for the tickets and stuff. I they we go to the show in Pittsburgh, and I'm up here in Erie now, so especially with all the financial difficulties I've faced since COVID, it just wasn't in the cards for me to travel back down to Pittsburgh to go to the show. And I think they took that kind of personally, you know. They saw it as an insult, but in reality, it was like, no, I almost starved to death last year. So it was nothing personal about them. It did a little bit, right? I definitely had a chip on my shoulder, but I still tried to make it work. But when they like demanded that everything happened according to their schedule, and I was barely even managing to put food on the table, let alone had gas money to drive all the way down to Pittsburgh and back, I was like, oh fuck no. And it really broke my heart. It's the first year. It's probably been like a decade that we've been going to see Trans Siberian Orchestra every year. And that was the first year I missed. But we went again last night, actually. And I got to see one of the most incredible moments It was one of my favorite moments I've ever seen at the show, right? So, uh, we're sitting there. We have pretty good seats. We have floor seats, and on the floor, the first of all, it's like the weirdest rock show I've ever been to in my life because um, I'm used to going to like a ginger show where everyone's like jumping up and down and you're in the mosh pit and stuff like that. It's exactly the opposite of that. It's like you're at a golf tournament and everyone's sitting straight back and golf clapping. And that's one of the things I find so impressive about Trans Siberian Orchestra as performers, and it's in that it's one of the most high energy concerts I've ever been to in my life, but simultaneously the lowest energy crowd I have ever seen in my life. And I can tell you from when I was performing a lot for live audiences in college that performing with high energy when you have a low energy crowd is incredibly difficult. It can be very draining. So they managed to do it regardless. And one of the cool things that they do, part of it, is they get down off of the stage and they like literally run through the crowd. You know, they have it organized so it's like there's a center break and then there's like two or three vertical or horizontal breaks, I guess. Um, and they'll get off the stage and Roddy and Chris and um, Joel. This year, Natalia and Georgia also did it. They'll like go and they'll just like be walking or running sometimes down those lanes in the middle of the performance. And as Chris was running past me, he stopped. He actually ran past me and went back. And he stopped in front of this little kid. And he went and he pulled this guitar pick out of the head of his guitar and just in the middle of the song just goes and gives it to this kid. And oh my god, you should have seen this kid's face light up. Now this is nothing unusual, right? Every year they have picks that they're out there chucking into the crowd, and in fact, it used to be a little bit easier to get a pick. It's never easy, of course, because they probably throw like what somewhere. If I had to guess, I'd say maybe a few dozen to 100 picks per show. I'm sure someone in the show or crew, because they have an incredible stage crew. My dad brought one of his old high school and college friends. Well, actually, probably from before then. One of the friends he grew up with in Oil City to the show this year. And they used to be an AV club together, and they mentioned that, and I was like, yeah, but this is the Olympics of AV when they were talking about like everything the crew does to make the show work, right? So ask one of the performers or one of the TSO road crew how many picks they go through per show. But regardless, there's thousands of people per show. They fill up an entire stadium, right? It's in the Penguins Stadium, whatever they fucking call it now, PPG Paints Arena, I think, or something like that. Um, so it's not easy to get one of those picks, and um, usually they're just like chucking them at you. And in previous years, they have moving platforms, but still in previous years they always switch up the show just a tiny bit. I like that it's always fresh. In fact, I'm pretty sure I didn't see last year, so it's hard to make little comparisons, but they changed at least they have a storyteller, an incredible storyteller. First name Brian, I forget his last name, but I think they changed some of the script for him because some of the rhymes were a little bit different than I remember them being in the past. Either that or I'm just getting old and I have early onset dementia. Clearly, the hair's falling out, but I in the in previous years, they had these platforms that would actually raise the two guitarists up. The two main guitarists are Chris Caffrey, at least on the East Coast. They have two teams, I think, one for West Coast, one for East Coast US. Chris Caffrey and Joel Hoekstra, they put them on these elevated platforms that in previous years would actually extend out over top of the floor audience. So they'd be like raining picks down on you from up there. But this year, I got to see Chris run up to this little kid and just hand him one of the guitar picks. And that kid had the biggest, brightest, beaming smile on his face. I'm sure that kid's going to remember that moment for the entire rest of his life. And it truly warmed my heart to see that. And that's really what Christmas is all about, right? It's about kindness and warmth and loving your fellow human beings. In fact, it wasn't always my favorite song. When I was younger, my favorite song by them was the Christmas Canon Rock, right? They have this incredible tapping solo during it. And when I was originally learning guitar, I was learning to play Christmas Canon Rock simply so one day I would have enough talent and skill to play that tapping solo. If you're not aware what tapping is, it's generally exclusive to high sustain distortion guitars because you need to generate noise without strumming the guitar. It is possible to do it on acoustic guitars, but you definitely need good sustain and you really need to hammer the strings on an acoustic guitar to get the volume necessary to be able to hear that unless you have some kind of pickup, right? So it's usually done on electric guitars, but basically you stop strumming and you just use both hands to play notes on the neck, and it's the percussive force of slamming your fingers down on the strings that creates the vibrations which allow the tapping technique. And it's how you hear a lot of those insanely inhumanely fast guitar solos. The other way you usually hear that is through sweeping, which is a technique where you strum the guitar, but instead of like holding a chord, you play a different note on each string, right? That's something that Thin Gates of Avenged Sevenfold really used to employ a lot. I don't know, like I haven't listened to A7X in years, to be honest. It ever since the Rev died, I kind of it hasn't been the same, you know. But at least as far as Trans-Siberian Orchestra, that solo always inspired me to want to really become a truly talented guitarist. And now I barely know how to play at all because I spent a decade in the workforce not playing. But little aside, I have tuned the guitars. Playing scales again. So maybe in like a few years I'll be able to do a tapping solo. But the point is These days, and for the past several years, my favorite song is actually I don't know if this is the whole title of the song or if it's just what I call it in my head. Um, I think it's Promises to Keep or something like that. The line is Christmas has its promises to keep. And there's this part at the end of the song that is just so truly inspiring to me where a lot of people are extra kind to people during the holiday season, but it's kind of just pretending, right? Um, the final line of the song is if this kindness that we feel is just pretending, if we pretend long enough, never giving up, it just might be who we are. And the whole idea behind that is maybe you don't necessarily always feel that kindness in your heart. And perhaps there's demons in your head which are telling you not to be kind in that way, right? But if you are kind anyways, it forces a new habit, right? And what are we if not our habits? So, if one of the other things that the song talks about specifically is trying to maintain that attitude throughout the entire year. And if you can maintain that habit of kindness throughout the entire year, then you are kindness. And I feel like that's really what most people, at least here in the US, have forgotten, right? Is just to be kind to one another. And I want to make a quick distinction, right? There, it's not that there's limits, but you need to set boundaries. Um, Jesus himself was incredibly kind, but he also went into the Temple of Jerusalem and flipped tables and chased people out of it, calling the religious and political leaders of his time snakes and liars and hypocrites, right? So it's important to be kind, but it's also important to be truthful and to give evil no quarter. And that's a very difficult balance at times. I feel like there's three aspects to being kind in that like mentality though. The first is to always lead with love, right? I see too many people these days, the moment they start an interaction with someone else, it's just incredibly hateful and um, they're just egotistical or they're cruel. And it's like, don't do that. Just start from a place of love. And I guarantee you, if you start from a place of love, your relationships with other people will dramatically improve. The second thing is to set boundaries, right? Um, I, when I was really younger, and even up till recently, it's only like post COVID that I've actually started to learn to set boundaries. I just used to let everyone take advantage of me constantly. And I felt miserable because of that. I would go, I was like a naive, innocent fool. Well, I just go around always being kind to everyone at all times, regardless of how they treated me. And that took an incredible toll on my soul, right? It just left me miserable and without energy or even respect for myself. I was nothing but a doormat for other people to use and manipulate and abuse. So that's really the point where you need to put your foot down, but that is still kindness, just in a way that's a little different than most people realize. It's like the idea of tough love, right? It's tough kindness. You are being kind to someone by calling them on their evil bullshit. Because here's the thing, if they keep doing that evil, it's going to be very bad for them, whether in this world or the next. Uh, it harms their soul tremendously to do evil like that. So, by calling people out on their evil deeds, uh, you are doing them a kindness. Now, you have to be careful not to judge. There's a difference between judging someone and saying, you're going to hell. I don't like it when people do that. There was a video not too long ago where, like, Jack Doherty was sitting with some dude and, like, he was talking to Jack Doherty's OnlyFans, like the girls that he pimps out, and he was the other dude that was sitting there having dinner with him was like, "You guys have no soul," or something like that. I was like, "Whoa, buddy, worry about your own soul first there for a minute, you know." But I get what he was saying, but it's like to actually go and that's like crossing the line. But there's a difference between saying like I'm worried for the state of your soul versus straight up telling someone they have no soul, you know? And I think most people don't, first of all, nuance is lost on most of the world these days, but I think most people don't realize how fine those lines can be too. So that's really the second thing is to, even while you're being kind, don't become a walking mat. You know, Jesus was the great shepherd. So, what is the primary role of a shepherd? Well, one, it's to keep the flock together and keep it safe. Well, what are you doing to keep it safe? Uh, you're driving away the wolves, and you can give evil no quarter, right? Because if you don't drive away those wolves, they're going to harm your flock. So, yes, be kind, but also be strong and be bold and be uncompromising in the face of evil. And then the third thing, though, and I feel like this is the most important aspect of kindness, is forgiveness, right? Because people are going to mess up. None of us are perfect. God knows I've made my share of mistakes. But when someone does make a mistake, if they own up to it, if they say, hey, I'm sorry, forgive them. Allow them to save face, right? Don't hold that against them for their entire life. That's true kindness, is forgiveness, the ultimate kindness, you know? So that's what Christmas is really about, just being kind to each other. So, especially during this time of the year, I ask that you're all kind to each other. And if you don't know what that means, just look to the performers of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, because I believe they do a great job of demonstrating it. Every single one of them. They're all such inspiring people, you know, cancer survivors, incredible backgrounds. And yet they're out there every year doing one of the most insane shows I can imagine. They do 2 shows a day, and then they move on to the next city and do 2 shows of some of the most high energy metal I've ever seen in front of the lowest energy crowd I've ever seen. In fact, it seems to get lower and lower every year. And even being a member of the crowd, I find it especially hard to just enjoy the music and be high energy because I feel so out of place sometimes, where everyone else is just sitting there like soulless robots and I'm just vibing to the music. And I must admit, it does feel a little not embarrassing. I don't know the word, but um, I'm very self aware of it the whole time. And I wish I didn't have to feel that way. I wish we could just all vibe with the music together. But it's like, uh, I'm wondering if people are truly losing their souls to this world because maybe it's just different because I didn't go last year. And I feel I've done a great deal of enlightenment personally over the past 2 years. But I honestly felt like this year was the most dead I have ever seen the audience. And I'm wondering how many truly kind souls exist in this world, or if we're just left with a bunch of human NPCs at this point. But regardless, um, be kind to people, especially in the face of overwhelming darkness. Because here's the thing, when you look around and it seems like there's not enough light left in the world, that's your cue, right? That means that it's your turn to start shining brighter. So, all I want to say is be kind to each other, and that's the true meaning of Christmas. And I love all of you, and God bless America.